Well, first of all, I really would like to express my gratitude for the invitation to take part in the TEDx. And I also really would like to say, commend the fact that the youth are talking about the future, because this is the time really to talk about the future, because times are changing, and therefore the future is definitely not going to be like what we're having today. Then we would like to take part in changing the world, in shaping the future, and therefore talking about it now is the right time. So I'm here, I took the invitation as an individual, not in my official capacity, and therefore I will be talking about ideas that I put forward back in 2014 in my article that was published in 2014. And the part of article was really dealing with the international order that we would want to, or I would want to see being shaped up. So, the major topic of today that I will be talking about is really the fact that we're facing a lot of problems, but these problems are due to our success, not failure. And therefore, we're now being held hostage to our own very success. So that will be the subject that I will start my talk with. Now, at the global level, we're seeing frustration. The global order is in disarray. And what we're seeing, the features of these problems is mass migration, populism, nationalism, centrifugal drive observed throughout the world. You can see Brexit, and you can see also changes in the North American trade arrangements, etc. As a result of all of this, we're seeing lack of confidence in the government throughout the world. And the most interesting thing is that we all in the last 30 years believed in the strength of democracy, and then these are the times of doubts, and therefore we're seeing to a certain extent vacuum of ideology. We're lost. And of course the stagnant growth of leading economies is also depressing and making us believe less in the strength of the modern global system and in the strength of progress. Social network is a completely new phenomenon that is both contributing positively, but at the same time bringing challenges. I'm saying challenges, not bringing failures or negativities. Now, why this is happening? And here I would like to refer to a Mongolian saying, "Жаргал даахгүй зовлон." Well, in English it basically says that suffering from excess of prosperity. In Russian it says "Жиру беситься." So, this is the paradox. The world today that we're living is the most prosperous out of every other systems of the global order we ever had before. Everyone here in the audience is having benefits that no one before in previous generations in an accumulated term could enjoy and could have. And I'll just really try to show you how successfully the world progressed over the last 30 years. Now, the world GDP. I just took post-World War II period, and I'm trying to compare the gone Cold War period to the globalization period that we're now doubting and trying to change. So, in the post-Cold War period, starting from, let's say the Cold War started about 50s or around 1950s or immediately after the Second World War. And then from then on, for 30, 40 years, for the global GDP to reach the level of $22 trillion, it took 30 to 40 years. And then you can see now the steep growth when the world went liberal, when the Cold War ended. Then you can see this spike in the growth of the world GDP. You know, within less than 10 years, in these last 30 years, within less than 10 years, we were reaching or making $22 trillion within 10 years. So within 30 years, we reached $87 trillion. In other words, we were growing much, much faster than ever before. It took us 40, 30 years to reach only $22 trillion. Already by 2000 something, we were making $40 trillion. And this trend can be observed throughout the macroeconomic statistical data at the global level. If you take international trade and foreign direct investment, this is the picture. The same. For us to reach the global trade level of $3-something trillion, it took 30, 40 years. But it reached $6 trillion. The same level, you know, we added up $3 million that previously took us 30, 40 years. Here, within 10 years, you're already $6.5 trillion. Now, this is the global exports. Again, you can see these spikes. You know, these spikes are showing if we're trading this much, that means a lot of billions of people are working, earning money, living better, and selling their goods to other countries that they could never dream of selling. After Cold War, or in the post-Cold War period, we were, the markets really opened up. And the goods that you would not find elsewhere, you could find in places that you would never dream or think of before. And this is the interesting thing as well. Now, you can see that wealth spiked, grew very fast. And people may be saying, well, the wealth grew fast because population grew fast. But you can see that in 1990s, the global population stood at 5 billion people, and the growth was much modest, it reached only $7 billion. I mean, compared to the wealth generation that we as a humanity could produce. As a result, you can see that GDP per capita, of course it's pretty symbolic, but still it is indicative of how the world has progressed. GDP per capita has spiked as the GDP and global trade and global exports. And this is at the global level, and many people say that, well, it's at the global level, these astronomical figures belong to only successful bigger countries, smaller countries did not benefit from it. Very sexy idea. If I talk this at the global arena, I will be popular because I will be saying that I am defending those who are less successful. But not always it is true. And therefore we should be really, no matter how inconvenient the truth is, but we should be saying the truth. And on the basis of this, if we develop our policies on the true facts, the policies developed on the true facts will be much more efficient than the policies developed on false facts. So this is Mongolian GDP. You can see that Mongolian GDP grew also very fast. Post 2000, it was really, the GDP growth was reaching at 17.3%, and our GDP in absolute terms between 2003 to 2012, within 8-9 years, it grew 10 times. 900%. So you can observe this growth. And just, again, people may be saying, well, these are just facts and macroeconomic data. Look at this picture. You know, especially down in the left corner, this is the picture of late 90s of Ulaanbaatar. And this approximate district can be seen on the top, on the left top, and on the right bottom, especially this drama theater area. And again, the growth of real estate around that area grew also 10 times. So these figures are matching. These statistical data are not just data. They are a reflection of real processes that are going on in reality. Now, I talked about global, country level, and then here is regional level. You know, if we're talking about SM countries, you can also see the same spike. Now, so the world was growing very fast, and then what's going on? Why are we not happy? You know, things are going actually good, pretty well. And then this all of a sudden, we're not satisfied with the system that we're having, and post-Cold War order that actually brought this spike and growth is no more. We don't believe in that system. And I think this is right. If we are free, it is our freedom to doubt any system. And therefore, apparently the post-Cold War system is changing. Then where it should be changing. The interesting thing is that although this post-Cold War period delivered what it was promising to deliver, but there is this little but that I will be talking later. Now, average person today, gets much more material wealth, medical services, social services. If you talk about IT services, it is just amazingly different. So average person is getting a lot of benefits out of modern growth. This is just a picture, to show that this guy sitting in the left with the laptop and computer is really better off, much better off compared to the people of the previous generation. And I'm not comparing the average person to average person of the previous generation. I'm even comparing the average person today with the kings and queens and nobilities of the previous generation. That king or emperor, whatever, on the left, on the right top side, that guy could not have access to as much information within that short period of time as this guy on the left. And the healthcare services, for example, if that guy contracted TB, the only outcome would be fatality. This guy today, this average guy today will not die of TB. Even this computer, this king, even in his wildest dreams, would not have a computer in front of him. If it was available, he would have been paying fortune, castles to get this computer. Now I'm comparing to this average guy to the average peasant or citizen of the previous generation or century. Incomparable. Now, then what is the problem? Over expectations. Politicians were overselling, especially in the early 90s. We were also not fully informed where the world is going. The world was ideal. We did not have enemies. We did not have confrontation. And then the world, now we're using these figures like billions. This is a new phenomenon. Up until recently, economy was not being measured in the billions. And then within very short period of time, now we're talking about trillions. So the 20th century economy I'm calling billionarium. the new century, 21st century, it's a trillionnarium. I don't know where the next generation will be going. So, and we're having this peace, global liberalism and absence of enemies. But here is the problem. Why we're having the problem that we're having today? Inequality. The wealth has grown, but not everybody benefited. Although politicians were saying that bigger pie will be, benefiting everyone, and it didn't work. You know what failed? Economy worked. In other words, wealth generator worked. The distributor, the bloody politicians, did not. The system did not. And therefore, we ended up in this very unequal world. And in today's this world, many things are very difficult. Political science, social sciences, psychology are not fully covering this new phenomena of social media. And now, again, another problem is that each and every one of us is having this dual personality. In psychology, it's a problem. Multiple personality is a disorder. But in today's world, it's apparently becoming a new norm, because when people go into the Twitter, they become different person than the person that person is in reality. And then political decisions are made on the basis of the thoughts of that different person in virtual reality. And therefore, we have this risk of not exactly doing what, making the right policies now under this new social media, in the social media generation. Now, so if this world is collapsing, where we're going? Two options. Unfortunately, we're today going into the wrong direction. Cold War II has become almost a reality, but there is a chance to reverse it. And therefore, we want to move to a new system. And in 2014, I was writing about this multipolar pluri-axis system. So the world, from more simpler rules, and here I have a very short glimpse of the history of international relations. So basically, it was moving from very anarchic system to a more orderly system, from simpler systems to complex systems. So before we had city-states and warring with each other, and then we had more orderly system, but still one hegemonic state dominating the others, Roman Empire, Mongol Empire, and then Westphalian system. And then we went into this dual system, Cold War period, pretty complex, from more simpler to complex, more orderly. And then, now, we're in this, so this is really showing how generally the world order is, changing. And this is the bipolar world in which we ended up after World War II. And then, this is the system that we had over the last 30 years. The system now we're saying not good enough and we want to change it. The system that delivered unprecedented wealth. And this is the system I think we would better be building instead of degenerating back into the Cold War era. And this is going to be a system based on multi-axis. And there, I was writing about it in 2014, but today Japan, the United States is coming forward with the idea of Indo-Pacific. So the axis I was talking about was that, during Cold War period, we had this Atlantic axis dominated system where Europe and America with their trade and investment, technological development were leading the world. And then trans-Pacific trade started overtaking transatlantic trade, and it was bringing in qualitative change in the global progress. And then now we're having Indian Ocean axis where Asia is trading actively with Africa, India trading actively with Africa, and even Europe through Suez Channel also trading, across this Indian axis with Africa. And Africa is also coming up as a player in the global economy. And now I added up, yesterday in preparing this presentation, I added up another axis, that is Eurasian axis. It's a continental axis. And it's good news for us Mongolians, because when maritime routes were invented, Silk Road collapsed. Mongolia started losing out. And these times, with this Belt and Road Initiative and with the improved infrastructure across the Eurasian continent, these times are coming back. Whether we can seize that opportunity or not is up to us. And in this global world, I really say that morality is much stronger weapon than weapons of mass destruction, because weapons of mass destruction are not produced for being used. Morality is used 24/7, and it's spread, multiplied through the means of social media. So that's where we should be going, and that's where I would want the global community to go. Thank you.